Hello, welcome to Truth for Today. This is Dai-Ching Yuan, your host and teacher, pastor of Abilene Bible Church in Abilene, Texas. Today we're continuing our study of iCitizen, how to be better citizens in two kingdoms. iCitizen is a part of the large series called iChristian, in which we have taught biblical Christian life. And we have made mini-series from originally single sermons. And we have made these till now. I believe, I confess, I pray, I worship, I fellowship, I give, I baptize, I Eucharist, I study, I obey, I witness, I disciple, I member, I serve, and now we're doing iCitizen. Citizenship is to be a member of a community which is a political entity, okay, a city, okay, or a kingdom. And citizenship's concept of kingdoms and citizenship, what is good, what is bad, has many, many variations. The Americans is not necessarily biblical, and the biblical concepts have a vertical and horizontal dimensions. And we have learned there for a city, in the ancient times, there are four key elements: land, people, God or gods, culture or tradition. Okay, if you share these, you're more likely a member or citizen of the city. And we also learned there are four kinds of kingdoms on earth, and there is a kingdom from heaven, that's God's sovereign rule over all creation, that is enforced. There is a current kingdom of heaven in which the believers of Jesus belong to. Okay, and there is another spiritual thing that's called the kingdom of the world. That actually is a rulership by Satan. Through the world system, through the government and economic system and social system, and so on, and that is it's a vertical relationship, but not to God, but to Satan. And finally, there is a horizontal one that is called just a nation or a city or a kingdom, whatever political entity we belong to. Okay, so all Christians have dual membership. We belong to the kingdom of heaven, and we also belong to a kingdom on earth. And the last time when we met, we discussed that there to evaluate how to make the last kind of the human kingdom on earth, how to make it biblically good. We found out there are also four dimensions. There is a theological dimension, there is a political dimension, there is an economic dimension, and there is a social dimension. Okay, last time we discussed the the theological, okay, or religious dimension. And our conclusion, according to the Bible, is that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. So if a nation chooses, sometimes impose, like Israel, but for the Christian nations, it's a choice. Okay, if you choose the Lord, Yahweh, Jehovah, the Eternal One, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of the Judeo-Christian religion, okay, if you choose this God, the Lord, as your God, your nation shall be blessed. And we can see that evidenced in today's political, economical, and social situations. Okay, the nations that are Christian, Judeo-Christian, in the Judeo-Christian culture, it's better than the other ones. Okay, we have Chinese, we have the Hindu, we have Muslim, and we have the animist, and so on. And none of them are as good as the Judeo-Christian culture. And within the Judeo-Christian culture, the Christian one is better than the Jewish one, because the Jewish one have not been there long. But today, Israel is doing well. And among the Christian nations, those who are belong to the new religion, or we call them Protestant tradition, is better than those who belong to the older religion, like the Catholic, Roman Catholic, and Eastern Orthodox. Okay, and those nations that have more evangelical Christians, those who emphasize the brotherly love, and those who emphasize the inerrancy of the Bible, and those who emphasize the world missions, and those countries are doing the best. Actually, America is probably the single one, and Korea maybe, and Singapore maybe. Those nations still don't have high percentage of Christians. They have maybe 30-something, 20-something percentage, but those people are in power in those countries, and they are doing well comparing with other nations of similar situation. So that's a theological dimension. Blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord. And today let's focus on the second dimension. It's called the political dimension. Okay, and there are, generally speaking, 4 kinds of political system in the world. Okay, and the best kind is direct rule by God. That's a divine monarchy. Okay, and however, that is not available now. It's only available in the millennial kingdom of Christ. After the second coming of Christ, he will rule over the earth for 1,000 years, and he will make his capital in Jerusalem, and he will rule over the nations through the Jews, and his helpers, angelic-like, will be his church, which will become his bride, and we, as a member of the church, will go through the judgment seat of Christ, in which we receive our glory based on our work for Christ after our salvation. Remember, we are not saved by our works, but just by grace through faith. But after our salvation or justification, our faithfulness and our work for Christ will result in rewards, which will be glories and maybe titles, positions, etc., for the millennial kingdom. So we will have glorified body, and we will not be confined by the space and time. We'll be like Jesus Christ, who entered the room, the upper room where his disciples were. He just beamed himself there, and he beamed himself out there, and he didn't need to go through the doors or windows. And if you want to go to Hawaii, you just blink and you are there. That's great freedom. Okay, and as a physicist, I believe that is like what we call the macroscopic quantum state. And today we know only in microscopic system when the particles are not constrained by space. It can be a wave, can be there, here or there. It depends on the like a probability wave. But that's only microscopic, not macroscopic. But if we have glorified body, maybe we will have that kind of quantum state, but macroscopically. Okay, anyway, that's a play, I think. It's just good to think about it, but we will not know until we're there, right? And anyway, the best political system is ruled by God directly. Of course, Jesus Christ is God. He is the second person of the Trinity. He is now already glorified, sitting on the right hand of God the Father. He has the right to rule over everything under heaven and on earth. Everything created was by him and for him, and now ruled. And by then it will be ruled by him. Okay. However, this kind of rulership and ruling directly by God, by all-knowing and all-good God, it's the best political system. Okay. No injustice shall escape his knowledge and shall escape his punishment. Okay. So that will be perfect world when the Satan will be chained in the abyss, and the people who live through the tribulation, not like us, who the people who are believers before the second coming. When we are glorified and we don't have the physical body anymore, we have a glorified body, and therefore we don't have marriages and children. We don't die, so therefore we don't need to reproduce. But there are people who live through the tribulation, and they live into the millennium, and they will be, I think, 1/3 of the Jews who will survive during the tribulation, and people from every nation on earth will have believers by the works of the 144,000 Jews who spread the gospel to the world during that 7 years. And they will have physical body. They will marry and bury, and they will live and reproduce, and they will multiply on the earth. They still have the body, physical body. They still have the sinful nature. However, without temptation, they will sin less, at least, if not becoming actually sinless. But that is temporary. And when, at the end of the 1,000 years, when Satan is released, people will sin again. They will rebel against God. That's a short rebellion. They will be crushed immediately. And God simply will make the point that as long as humans have the physical body, they will have a problem. They have a sinful nature living in it, and therefore they still can sin. And even though it has the benefit of, physical love between man and woman, therefore sex, marriage, children, family, and so on and so on. However, it has something bad, that is sin. Therefore, at the end of the millennium, after the short time rebellion and in the repentance, people will recognize, hey, we agree, we will not have the body anymore. We will have the glorified body, not a physical body. So at that time, the final judgment is called the Great White Throne Judgment, and then we enter the eternal state, future. Okay, that is the second stage of the full kingdom of God. First is the millennial kingdom. That's for the Jews, and the eternal state, that's for the church and every kind of saints of God. Okay, so that is the best kind of political system. The problem is that is in the future, not now. Okay, so what can we do? Okay, can we have the second best? Yes, the second best political system is called republicanism. Okay, the word republic was invented by the Romans. Okay, Rome was founded in, I think, 753 BC by legend, by Romulus, and then after a while it became a kingdom. For a short period of the Roman kingdom, the kings became more and more corrupt, and one day one of its prince raped a common girl, a woman called Lucretia. There was a poetry called The Rape of Lucretia. It's one of the classical poetries. Okay, and because of that, the people rebelled against the king, and they overthrew the kingdom, and they made Rome a republic. And republic is one that is a political entity. It's a city, of course, Rome, and later become the hegemony of Rome. It became a Roman, the empire of Rome. But it was a polis, okay, and it was a political entity. It has limited government. Republicanism means it's limited government because government rules by force. Therefore, government is dangerous. Government must be limited. Government must be confined by the will of the people, and at least by some of the people. And then government can be limited by the internal constraint, by the separation of powers. So the Romans invented the republicanism. They have a senate that is a group of the elite people, the rich and well-educated and the wise people, hopefully, they rule, and that's the Senate. And then they also have a tribune that's represented the people. The people elect the tribune who represent the people, the commoner. And then they also have an executive and of the ruler, that they will have two of them at the same time. Every year they have changed. The term of ruling is 1 year, and they have to agree. The two have to agree with each other in order for anything to be done. So that is the beginning of the separation of power and limited government, and that's republicanism. Okay, and in modern time, often we say, okay, we're a democracy. Well, not really. America, to be strict, is not a democracy. America is a republic. It is a Christian democratic republic. Okay, and in terms of faith, it's Christian. it adopted the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as its God. So blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord. And in terms of the political system, it's a republic. It has a limited government. It has separation of powers. It is democratic only in the sense that the people vote to choose their representative to lead this republic. In that sense, it's a democratic republic. In the world now, there are many nations call themselves Democratic Republic, and they're usually neither Democrat nor Republic, such as DPK, the Democratic Republic of Korea. Okay, it's neither Democratic nor Republic. Okay, it has basically a dictatorship of one family, one person rule, okay, one party rule, and therefore names are not necessarily equal to the reality, okay, to the true nature. Therefore, the idea of democracy was invented by the Greeks. But the Greeks, for the Greeks, democracy, the people rule, only applied to the citizens of the city, which are very few. Okay, they're the ruling male head of these families, kind of like the Roman Senate. Okay, in these citizens, yes, they vote to determine everything in the city. They may vote to elect a tyrant to rule over them, but other than that, it's a city council. Okay, and the city council is also the jury and the judge. Okay, and they vote by black stone and white stone to determine if a person is guilty. Okay, the democracy was invented by the Greeks. The republic was invented by the Romans, and in the modern Christian democratic republic was invented by the Americans. Okay, so before America, before the United States, there were so-called Christian nations. They are actually monarchies in Europe, and they adopted Christianity as their religion, but they do not behave according to Christian ethics. Their monarchs don't, and there's no limit to their monarch's power, so they are not republican, and they're just simply kingdoms that have used Christianity as its, generally speaking, its ideology. Okay. However, so there's a constraint on the kings because of the Christian ethics. But since the Christian church has no power or teeth, the kings actually rules, with their will. They are just a little worried about what the history will say about them, kind of like Confucianism. They say that the kings or emperors should worry what the historians write about them, but some just don't care. They want now. So anyway, the idea of a Christian democratic republic was invented by the Americans. The American Revolution was the first time when such a nation is born. It's Christian in terms of faith. It's democratic because the people elect their representatives, and it's a republic. It's a representative republic. Okay? And with separation of power, limited government, and with a constitution as overall rule. So this is the real origin, okay, of a true republic. Okay, but it happens to be Christian democratic republic. However, in reality, there are several kinds of republican governments in the world. For example, okay, ancient Israel. Okay, ancient Israel wasn't in the beginning. It was the people of Israel was set up by God through the choosing of Abraham, and through him Isaac and Jacob, and from Jacob 12 tribes. Okay, and that's the people of Israel, circa 2000 BC, the Tower of Babel time. Okay, and then the nation of Israel was set up by God through Moses, circa 1500 BC, actually 1446 BC, the Exodus, 1406 conquest, 1400 the end of the conquest. 1399 is the beginning of the first year of the sabbatical cycles. Okay, anyway, the people of Israel from Abraham, the nation through Moses, about 500 years later, and then the state through David about another 500 years later. Okay, but if you read the Constitution of Israel, which is really the book of Deuteronomy, okay, and in that there are 2 chapters that deal with they are the case laws associated to the 4th word of the 10 words, the Decalogue. Okay, the Decalogue is really or the 10 Commandments, popularly speaking. That is the representation of the whole covenant between God and Israel. Okay, the Mosaic covenant is called the Old Covenant. And the 10 Commandments, and the 4th word says, honor your parents. That basically the spirit of the law means respect the authorities that God has set up over you. Okay, and the first authority people meet is the parental authority in the house, in the family. And then how about in the civil realm? Well, you have judges and kings. How about religious realm? Well, you have the priests and the prophets. Okay, the priests are the insiders, the prophets are the outsiders. When the kings and priests are not doing good, God sent prophets to accuse all of them and prophesy judgment and then prophesy restoration if they repent. Okay, so anyway, there are 3 kinds of authorities: familial, civil, and religious. Okay, so the 10 Commandments are the outlines, and there are sections of case laws associated to them. The part of case law in Deuteronomy that's associated to the authority part, to the 4th word, talks about the 4 kinds of authorities. And when it's talking about the civil authorities, it's talking about the judges and talking about the kings. Okay, and the kings are supposed to copy the law and obey the law. So it is a Judeo-Christian, you might say, that it's a Judaic and Judeo-Christian because God is Yahwehistic. Okay, and in terms of faith, and in terms of social, the government, you can see that it is ruled by separate tribes. They're like the states in today's America. They have autonomy rule. Okay, under the tribes there are clans, and under clans there are families. Each has its own head, and they are elected by their own, people. And they have tribal councils that are the clan elders. They rule over them. And about the national government, at first there was no national leader. God was the direct king. And that was actually the best time for Israel. And a lot of people say that the time of Judges is the dark age of Israel. I'm not sure about that. That time God was the direct king. Yes, the people weren't totally obedient. They lived as they will. But later people also lived as they will. They just had a king to enforce the law, and some kings did, some didn't. Okay? So anyway, I still think that was the golden age of Israel. Okay, when God was direct king of Israel. But when the people rejected God as their direct king and they want a human king, God was quite sad and angry about it. And he obliged, he let them choose at first a king according to their own choice, according to the people's heart. Well, they chose a tall, strong soldier. That was Saul. But Saul was not religiously obedient to God. He was not wise. He was tempestuous, and so on. And he was proven a failure. And later, God gave them one according to God's heart. That was David, the great king of Israel, who conquered the nation of Israel and then set up Israel as a state. And later, his son Solomon enjoyed the benefits, but he committed spiritual and physical sins. And so after him, the nation was divided into the north and south. Okay, but anyway, during the time of David, it was the setting up Israel, the state. So the people, the nation, the state, it was completely set up gradually by God. But if you look at the system of Israel, it was ruled by independent 12 states, tribes. Okay, and its national government, at first, it was just a commonwealth. Okay, and then later it became a monarchy. However, this monarchy has a constitution, which is the law. So they have restraints. The kings have authorities over them. So they have never been an absolute monarch. They are constitutional monarchs. Okay? And their government has limited power. The national government has a restraint by its constitution, the law. And the law implements through the tribal people, the elders. And when Solomon died, Solomon gave levied very high tax because he had reasons. He said, I built the temple for God. People say, okay, we are happy to give. And after that, 7 years, he said, I will build my palace. Well, people say, okay, we're happy to give, and that's 13 years. And after that, another 20 years, he didn't lower it, and people said, well, it's already there, okay, we'll wait until he dies. When he died, the people asked his son, said, can you lower the tax, please? And he said, he listened to his buddies rather than the people, and he says, no, if my father is the pinky, I'm the thumb. That means I'm going to press more. So the people said, to heck with your dynasty. We're going to leave the Davidic dynasty, the 10 tribes to the north, separate out. So anyway, ancient Israel was a monarchy, but it also has a republican government. It has a limited power. Okay, the Roman Empire, even though it was an empire ruled by one emperor, but it came from a republic, and many of the facets of the republic still remained. They still have a senate, and they still have a tribune, and the emperor still has some kind of limit on him, especially when he became a Christian. Then they have a constitution. Now the Bible, okay, the biblical ethics became their constitution. So in that sense, they are monarchic in form, but they are republican in nature. Modern United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, they never had a constitution. They are monarch. However, since the king is also the head of the church, okay, and ever since Henry VIII, and therefore they have a constitution over them. That's the Bible. And therefore, in that sense, they are monarchic in form, but in reality, they are republican in nature. Okay, they have a balance of power. England actually is the first nation that had a balance of power between the crown and the parliament. Okay, and from there it inspired later the American Revolution and then others. And so, yeah, you can have in form monarchic government, but in reality republican government. You can have oligarchic government like ancient Roman Republic, that means ruled by a few people, but it's still republican in nature. You can have a democratic government, like modern United States. We have people electing their representatives, and but in nature we are a republic. Okay, so republicanism is the second best political system. Okay, how about the third best? Well, or the worst one, that's called collectivism. It's called socialism or nationalism or tribalism. In there, the right of the collective is greater than the individual. Therefore, individual rights are easily conquered and overruled and taken away. And that's why I say it's a worse. And what about the worst? Well, the worst is human absolute monarchy, to be ruled by tyrants or tyrannic rulers, okay, dictators. Okay, and that is the worst kind of human government. So we can see the political realm, there are 4 kinds. The best, direct divine rule. That's not available now. It will be in the future. The second, republicanism, and the best of which are the Christian democratic republic. The United States was founded to be one. Now it's going away from that, but it's still enjoying its benefit. The worst one is collectivism, socialism, nationalism, tribalism, and the worst one is dictatorship and the absolute monarchy. Amen.